you, Jan. Thanks to Darcy and Sophia and all the volunteers at the Art Center. This is a special place, and I was delighted to be invited to come back and show here. And it's been a fun experience. Brenda and I got here a couple days ago, and we've been hanging the show, and just remembering and reminding ourselves of how beautiful this place is and special it is. I was born and raised here in the valley, so this is home and always will be home. We live in Vancouver, Washington now. I have 3 kids and they're all in the Portland area. So we're doing great over there. We love it there too, but it's always great to come back here too. And it's my roots and where I started trying to learn to be an artist. And so I'm gonna try not to talk too long, which those of you that know me might, you know that's an active will for me. But I really am enjoying so much visiting with everybody and seeing all these familiar faces. It's so gratifying to have so many come out for this exhibit, for Jess and I both, I think. And I can't believe this, but we're on our 10th year now living in Vancouver. So we've made kind of a big circle from '94 when we left the valley and we were living in Arizona for a few years, and in Southern California, then back here when our mothers needed us closer by. We were here for a time and then chased our kids over to the west side. And it's all been good, but it's wonderful to be back. As far as the artwork, those of you that have known my work for a long time know I've painted realistic paintings in the valley here for years, and I still I haven't entirely left. I never entirely leave in almost any style. So the reason I called this show Cross Section was that they're fairly, all except one are pretty recent works, like the last 4 or 5 years. But I seem to have these different themes or ideas that I'll visit and then revisit, and it might be a year apart, and it might be 10 years or 20 years apart, but they recycle back. Case in point is this large painting of the 2 vessels here. Back in the mid-'80s is when I sort of went through my artistic crisis, I guess you'd call it. I felt like I was not growing as an artist. This is an internal thing, I think, for us artists, really. It isn't so much about whether you're getting kudos from other people or something. You have to follow your own star or scratch your own itch somehow. And I felt like I was just treading water. I wasn't really growing or learning. So that led the way I decided, well, I need to shake it up somehow. I need to do something different. And I'd always painted things that I came across, just things in the valley or people or animals or places and things. But I've never really done sort of artificial kinds of situations. So I started in the studio, I set up a still life with some pottery and things that we collected over the years, and just put a piece of cloth behind it. Thought, well, I'm just gonna work on still life, work on this artificial setup that I've never really done. And I plopped down these pots and things in a row and put them on a white cloth and worked, I think it was the summer of '84. I spent probably most of the summer working on that painting. I did other things as well, but that painting was the one where I thought it was highly realistic, but there was something else there starting. And it started this fascination for me with the vessel form. I use the word vessel, by the way, real deliberately, because to me the term vessel is a resonant word. It means not only container, we have the human vessel, the thought of just what a piece of pottery is, you know, made of earth but formed by hand. It's a perfect metaphor for our connection, I think, with the natural world in lots of ways. So that's the way I started thinking about it. So these realist still lifes that I was doing, over time, maybe to keep myself from going nuts, painting these precise paintings, they started growing into more imaginative kind of designs, ideas. And after a while, I didn't need the objects anymore. And so this is the oldest painting in the show, which was done in '92. And it was done just shortly before we left Oregon. We had visited the Painted Hills down in John Day country, and I was taken with these stripes. At that time, I had no idea, but you know, a couple of years later, we landed in Arizona in that kind of landscape. But at any rate, so by '92, by the time those vessels came along, I didn't need the objects in front of me. I was painting more from imagination. So the form it's pretty much like abstract painting, but the form gives me a structure, or it's kind of an excuse for where the paint goes, you know. But it's not about a pot, you know, in my mind at least. So I did this painting, and I probably worked up until about 2000. Off and on, the vessel theme was real prominent. And then at some point around early 2000s, I thought, well, I think I've said all I can say about vessels. It seemed to wear itself out as a theme, and I moved on to other ideas. And then I was working on this painting that Lyle stand by more recently. I think that's probably 2018 or 19. And it was just an abstract painting. And then this form popped up. It was kind of like seeing an old friend, you know. It's like, well, hello, you know. So I hadn't for 15 years or so. I hadn't worked with the vessel image, and so that evolved. That painting evolved into that, and it began a new series. And so, quite a few of the pieces that you see around here that are more recent, I've re-involved in that theme. Other themes that have come up with over the years for me are, for instance, the stone images.
They're Lyle's.
And so they're still invented. They became kind of invented things, but they did start from real stones that I saw around when we were back living here out at the Lad Marsh, Lad Marsh area, the parking area, the rocks they put around to keep you from driving into the marsh. For some reason, they just struck me, and so that launched another series that I still continue sometimes to come back to. So it's been used in paintings like that, or paintings like that one, which I call the myth of gravity. And then some of the abstract works, like those 4 paintings in the corner, there's another sort of theme that emerges and then disappears and might re-emerge again with some figurative kind of things. And again, it's kind of like that painting. They just sort of, oh, that's a leg or that's an arm, and I'm going to let that happen, you know, and I would go ahead and pursue it a little bit, and then it becomes a little more intentional. But I guess what I'm really saying is that I walk in the studio, I just have no idea. I don't know what I'm going to do today, you know. Or even if I think I know what I'm going to do today, I'll start something, and about 3 brush strokes in, it doesn't do what I want. All you artists know this. You know, no matter what your intention, that brush is never going to behave itself and do what you intend. And so you're always in a war of wills in a way with your painting. And I try to start without any idea of what I'm going to do for sure. I'm trying to be a blank slate every time I step up. But I know I'm not, because if you were, why would you be? The only time I'm happy is when the brush is moving on the canvas. And that's happy, but as soon as I take it off, I go, oh. Even if you don't have intention, supposedly, why am I disappointed then, you know? But I think these are artist problems that, that we deal with, and great to have those kind of problems, to be an artist. And I'm overjoyed and grateful that all these years, it's been 50 plus years that I've been able to pretty much paint full time. I've done mural projects kind of as illustration to make one end meet the other, and book illustration, and painted a few billboards in my time. You do whatever you need to do to survive as an artist, but I've been really blessed. I can't tell you how gratifying it is to see you all here today and to reconnect with so many of you dear friends that I haven't seen in a long time. I'm grateful for Facebook and Instagram that we kind of connect with some. But anyway, I'm not going to go on and on. I thank you all for coming, and if anybody wants to throw a question, I'll give a whirl.
I'm not going to throw a question, but I just want to say I think that's extraordinarily beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. That's sort of a case in point. It seems like, I love to work abstractly, but it almost always seems to bend itself into some form of representation. So I never quite entirely seem to leave anything. And for instance, the trees over here, we went to France a few months back. First time overseas, it was great. And it was a great gift, a 50th anniversary gift to Brenda and I from our kids. They gave us some seed money, and we put some of our money in and made this trip, and it was just a wonderful trip of a lifetime type thing. But we were staying in Le Beau in Provence area, and one morning I walked out into this untended olive grove. And it was, one of those, we all have those experiences. It was just the light, everything, the place we were at, the whole romance of it sort of was wonderful. So I took some photos, and that there's actually was the fourth one of those that has sold, but I did that series. So when we got back from France, I did a half dozen or so very realist painting, pretty reminiscent of my earlier work. And I think it was because it was sort of like trying to make a visual memory thing, more literal memory of what we just experienced, like writing in a diary in visual terms. Because, when you take a photo of something and you're in this place, maybe it's the Grand Canyon, and then you take this photo and are you kidding me? It doesn't even begin to catch. So I took tons of photos in France, but I know what happens. So I wanted to catch that experience. But I did, maybe after the sixth of those realist paintings, it's kind of like settling in an easy chair for me in a way, because I think I understand it more. A lot of the work I do these days, I kind of don't want to understand it. And I want to have a foot in what I don't know. If I go back to the paintings that I did, the visual diary kind of stuff that I was doing in France, it was a great pleasure. I wasn't so frustrated, I could sit and feel like I had a goal and know where I was, have bearings. But after about the sixth one, it was like, I can't stay here, So those trees, they're not quite as literal, but it was like I had to move it out, I had to put it somewhere else, start messing with the color a little more, and messing with the idea more. So that's the way I do. I kind of go back and forth all the time. Sometimes I pull back and kind of rehash what I've done in the past, but that seems to never last entirely before it moves to another direction. So, anybody else with questions or comments?
We love your work, Don.